My name's Alex. I'm 43. I live in Oklahoma, on a plot of land I laid claim to with sweat and a low-interest mortgage. You know the kind, just outside city limits, where the pavement gives way to gravel, and every other driveway has a rusting trailer or an old basketball hoop that hasn't seen a net in years. I've been married to Sarah for almost 9 years now. I met her at the hardware store. I was picking up caulk and rebar. She was looking at paint samples with her daughter, Taylor. Taylor was maybe 16 at the time. She didn't look at me, didn't even register I existed, which, in hindsight, might have been the first warning. Sarah smiled at me. The kind of smile that says she's tired but still open. That's what drew me in. She wasn't shiny or plastic. She looked like someone who had walked through fire and made it out with her skin intact. I respected that. I was lonely, too. The kind of lonely that clings to the inside of your ribs. So when she smiled, I smiled back. We talked about primer. Then about school supplies. Then, a few months later, about mortgage rates and combining furniture. Sarah came with 2 kids. Taylor, 16. Connor, 13. Their father, Rick, lived in New Mexico. He was a myth. A set of coordinates with sunglasses. He'd breeze into town with Yeezys, vape pens, and promises, then vanish before the laundry was done. But they loved him or the idea of him. The man who never grounded them. Never said no. Never showed up to parent-teacher night, but still got to be dad. Me? I was the one who paid for braces. I was the one who drove to soccer practice in the rain. Who sat in the bleachers watching Taylor's color guard routines even when she pretended not to see me. I signed field trip forms. Paid insurance premiums. Called the exterminator when ants showed up in the pantry. Replaced the washer when it died mid-cycle. I stayed. That was my crime. I showed up every day like it would eventually matter. Didn't. I wasn't trying to be their father. I knew better. I told myself, just be steady. Be fair. Be useful. Don't try too hard. Don't ask for affection. Just support them. That's what matters, right? Not flash. Not last names. Just presence. Quiet, reliable presence. But that kind of love isn't sexy. It doesn't get posted online. It doesn't compete with a weekend trip to Colorado or a surprise MacBook that still smells like the Apple Store. It just exists in the background like electricity, invisible, necessary, unthanked. Still, I thought I was doing okay. They didn't talk back, not at first. They were just distant. Taylor would walk past me without eye contact. Connor would mumble hey and disappear to his room. I made excuses. Teenagers are like that. Detached. Self-involved. Hormonal. Everyone says so. So I kept going. I paid for what they needed. I asked them how their day was. I didn't expect anything back. Maybe one day they'd look up and realize. Maybe they'd see what it meant to have someone who stayed. But it's amazing what you can ignore when you're trying to keep the peace. The little things. The way Connor would only ask Sarah for help with his homework, even though I taught math for 3 years before switching to contract work. The way Taylor never said thank you when I drove her and her friends to the mall. The way they referred to their father as dad and me as he. Always he. Like I was a pronoun in a room I hadn't been invited into. And Sarah, God bless her, she let it happen. Not out of malice. I think she just didn't want to push. Didn't want to rock the boat. She had guilt. About the divorce. About bringing another man into their lives. About taking sides. So she didn't. She'd say things like, they'll come around eventually. Or they just need time. And I believed her, because what else could I do? Then came the night that changed it. It was a Tuesday. I'd worked late. The kind of job that leaves drywall dust in your ears and your knees screaming by 6 p.m. Came home to find the kids camped out in the living room. Taylor had the TV remote in one hand and her phone in the other. Connor was half asleep under a blanket, headphones on, gaming controller limp in his hands. I walked into the kitchen. The dishes were still in the sink. A half-eaten pizza box sat on the counter. I cleaned up, not because I was told to, but because that's what I do. I clean. I fix. I maintain. I'm the scaffolding they don't see. After I finished, I walked down the hall toward the bedroom. As I passed the living room again, I heard Taylor's voice. She was on the phone with a friend, talking like I wasn't even in the house. "Mom pays for everything," she said, laughing. "He's just a bonus. It's convenient having someone to carry the bills." Her voice was light, careless, like it wasn't even cruel, just true. Convenient. I froze mid-step. There was something about that word. Not aggressive, not angry, just clinical, detached. Like I was a vending machine that dispensed stability. Insert proximity, receive monthly support. I didn't say anything, didn't storm in. I just kept walking. Into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed. My fingers curled tight into the blanket. Convenient. It hit me harder than any insult could have. I didn't even realize I was shaking until Sarah came in. She saw my face and asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. I wasn't. That night, I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the laughter echoing from the living room. And I understood something. Not intellectually, I had always suspected, but emotionally. In my bones. I wasn't family. Not to them. I was a sponsor. A background character. A checkbook with a heartbeat. That realization came with a coldness I didn't expect. A stillness. I didn't feel rage. I felt empty. Like a part of me had quietly died and no one noticed. The next morning I made breakfast. Same as always. Eggs, toast, orange juice. Set the table. Called them down. Taylor came first, grabbed a plate without looking up. Connor followed. Sarah smiled, said thank you, kissed my cheek. Neither of the kids said a word. And I saw it clearly. This was the pattern. This was the rhythm. They took. I gave. And nothing changed. That night, after the dishes were done, I sat in the garage. Lights off. Engine cold. Just silence. Just me and the weight of what I'd built, this version of a family. A scaffolding of money and effort and presence. All built on the assumption that one day, they'd see me, appreciate me, love me. They didn't. And the more I gave, the more invisible I became. Sarah came out eventually, stood in the doorway, asked if I was coming to bed. I said I'd be in soon. She hesitated, then closed the door. And that was it. That was when I knew. The cracks weren't forming. They were already there. I just refused to see them. The shift didn't happen overnight. It never does. The death of something as slow and sacred as belief, especially belief in family, takes time. It dies in layers. In looks. In silences. In the spaces between words where warmth used to live. But there was a moment. One. Clear. Final. It was 2 weeks after Taylor's quiet insult. After she called me convenient. After I stopped pretending I hadn't heard her. Her birthday was coming up. Teen. Sarah wanted to do something big. She always did. Taylor liked cabins. Those tacky short-term rentals with fairy lights strung across wooden porches. Places that looked rustic in photos, but still had high-speed Wi-Fi and air fryers. We'd done it for her 16th. Then again for her prom weekend. Sarah asked me if I could look into rentals, maybe check our points, see what I could pull together. I nodded. But I didn't do anything. That was the beginning of the silence. The kind that isn't loud, but heavy. The kind that turns a kitchen cold even when the stove is still warm. A week passed. Then another. The day before Taylor's birthday, Sarah came to me. Tension stitched into the corners of her mouth. I just thought. I assumed. You were handling it like last time. I was sitting at the kitchen table. Same place I always sat. Bills, laptop, checkbook. I'm not, I said. She blinked. You're not. No. She waited for me to explain. I didn't. That was new. I'd always explained. Always rationalized. Always softened the blow so no one else had to feel it. This time I let it land. Taylor asked for a new phone the next day. Just floated it out there like it was expected, like it was normal. Like the world would always bend toward her wants. She didn't ask me directly. She asked Sarah. At the dinner table. I was thinking about the new Galaxy. The camera's better. Mine's been freezing a lot. Sarah looked at me. Passed the question like a hot plate. I didn't look up from my food. I said it without flinching. Maybe talk to the person who supposedly gives you everything. Silence. Heavy. Cracking. Taylor put down her fork. Sarah's jaw tensed. Connor looked at me for the first time in weeks. Really looked. Like he was seeing something new. No one said anything. That night, I sat at the computer. Opened our accounts. Every card I carried, every autopay, every little invisible thread that connected me to their comfort. I cut them. Not all at once. One by one. Like pulling nails from a coffin. The gym memberships? Gone. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify Premium? Gone. Connor's Xbox subscription? Cancelled. Taylor's phone insurance? Dropped. I paused their meal plan charges at the high school cafeteria. Disabled auto refill for their bus passes. I didn't make a show of it. I didn't send a group text. I just stopped. Stopped funding the lie that I was appreciated. The next morning, the first cracks showed. Taylor's gym app wouldn't open. She asked Sarah if the Wi-Fi was down. It's not, I said, pouring my coffee. She looked at me, startled, like I'd spoken in another language, then turned to her mother. Can you check it? Sarah didn't answer right away. Her eyes flicked toward me. I didn't look back. Connor said later that evening, my game's not loading. It says something about payment verification. I took another sip of water. That's weird, I said. Might be something to talk to your dad about. The look on his face. That was the first time I'd seen something crack behind his eyes. Not anger. Not even confusion. Just exposure. Like he was realizing the world had layers he never noticed. Like he'd always assumed someone would pay for the air he breathed. Sarah tried to pull me aside that night. They're kids, she said. Her voice was soft. Too soft. Like she knew I was slipping away. They don't mean the things they say. No, I said. They mean it. They've meant it for years. You've just never listened. She wanted to argue. I saw it in her posture. But she didn't. Because she knew. She just didn't want to admit it. She'd been complicit. Her silence louder than any insult. So I pulled back more. I stopped asking about their days. Stopped waiting up. Stopped reminding them to eat, to hydrate, to lock the door when they left. I let the edges fray. Connor forgot his calculator one morning before a test. He used to shout upstairs and I'd run it out to him, shoelaces undone, coffee still on the counter. This time he just ran back in, breathless. I forgot. Do you have? I looked at him. Just looked. I don't, I said. He stood in the hallway, waiting for the old version of me to break through. The fixer, the backup, the utility. But that man had gone quiet. Taylor noticed next. She got home from work, coffee shop job, 5-hour shifts, minimum wage. Her face was flushed. Her phone screen cracked. She didn't look at me when she said, I can't DoorDash tonight. My debit card isn't working. I didn't respond. She turned toward Sarah. Her voice dropped. Did you forget to send it again? Sarah hesitated, then shook her head. It's not me. Taylor blinked. Then who? She stopped. She looked at me. For a split second, I saw it. The math landing. The dots connecting. She opened her mouth, closed it, left the room. The silence in the house changed after that. It wasn't defensive anymore. It was wary. They started watching me. Like I was unfamiliar. Like I might do something else unpredictable. But the truth was, I wasn't doing anything. I was undoing. That was the difference. My absence wasn't rebellion. It was withdrawal. Correction. They started picking up shifts. Selling old devices. Taylor listed a pair of sneakers online. Connor asked if we had a change jar. Sarah began covering small costs. School fees. Gas. Groceries. The grocery store receipts got longer. The wine bottles thinned faster. She stopped asking for help. Stopped assuming I'd bridge the gap. I didn't offer. At dinner, things softened, but not with comfort. With caution. Connor started saying, thank you, again. For the food. For the heat. For the lights. Taylor started asking how my day was. Tentatively. Like a child asking if the storm had passed. I didn't gloat. I didn't punish. I didn't use it to extract apologies. I just nodded. Said, fine. Ate in peace. Let them feel the weight of their own choices. I wasn't cruel. I didn't throw them out. I didn't lock the thermostat or drain their accounts. I just turned off the generosity. Respect isn't a transaction, but it is a threshold. And they had stepped on it for years, wiped their feet on it, laughed over it. Now they noticed its absence. One night I came home late, exhausted, covered in dust, my back screaming. I opened the fridge. The leftovers were labeled. My name was on a sticky note. Alex saved you some. It was small, stupid maybe, but it hit me harder than any thank you card ever had. Because it wasn't affection. It was recognition. And that was more than I'd had in years. Sarah approached me the next morning. She looked older, thinner, like stress had begun carving at her from the inside. "I'm sorry," she said. "I waited." "For what?" "For letting it get this far. For not seeing it." I nodded. Not out of forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. "They're growing up," she said. "They're seeing things now. They should have seen them earlier," I said. "But I'm not their teacher. I'm not their dad. I was never allowed to be." She looked down. "They're trying. They're late." She didn't argue. That night, I heard Connor knock on Taylor's door. "We should have treated him better," he said. "I know," she replied. And that was it. No tears. No dramatic apologies. Just the truth. Finally spoken when it no longer bought them anything. I stood in the hallway listening, then walked past. No smile. No nod. Just me. Moving through a house that was finally beginning to feel honest. Summer arrived without permission. It rolled in on hot wind and swollen skies, the kind that hang low and heavy, like they're waiting to burst. Taylor had plans. She always did. A music festival in Austin, 3 days, VIP wristbands, hotel booked with her friends. The kind of trip that costs more than a used car but gets paid for with a smile and a Venmo request. She floated it at the dinner table like it was tradition. "The girls are booking tickets this weekend. I told them we'd get mine tomorrow. Same as last year." I didn't answer. She waited, turned to her mother. "Right, Mom?" Sarah's fork paused midair. Her eyes flicked to me, then back to her plate. She chewed, swallowed. Taylor tried again. "It's already on sale. If we don't buy soon, the price jumps." Still nothing. Finally, she turned to me. Her voice dipped. A softness I hadn't heard from her in months. "Can we talk after dinner?" I nodded. She waited for Sarah to leave the room, then followed me to the garage, where I sat with the door cracked and the fan blowing warm air into warmer air. She stood by the workbench, arms crossed, one foot tapping. "So, the festival." I didn't look up from the rag I was folding. "I canceled the bonus." She blinked. "What?" "You said I was a bonus. I canceled it." The air changed, like pressure dropped. Her voice sharpened. "You're seriously not helping?" I looked at her. "Just once. Ask your dad." Her mouth opened, then closed. She stepped back like the words had teeth. "He's not around," she said. I nodded. "I know. I mean, he doesn't. He's not, he can't just." "He's your father," I said. "Start there." She stared at me for a long time, then left. The next day, she called him. I know because she sat on the porch, phone pressed so tight to her ear you'd think proximity could change the answer. Her voice shifted from hope to frustration to silence. When she came back inside, her face was flat, pale. She didn't say anything, just went to her room and closed the door. The trip didn't happen. She told her friends her schedule changed, that something came up. They believed her, or pretended to. Connor didn't ask for anything that week. Not because he didn't want to, but because he saw what it looked like when the rope frayed. By the weekend, they were quieter. They lingered in the kitchen longer, asked if we needed anything from the store, washed their own dishes. Taylor even folded laundry, not hers, mine. I didn't stop them, didn't comment, just watched. Let the gravity of consequence speak louder than any lecture could. One night, I was on the porch, same folding chair, same bottle of cheap bourbon. The heat stuck to my skin like guilt. I heard the screen door creak. Taylor stepped out. No phone, no makeup, just her. She sat on the step, pulled her knees to her chest, stared at the sky like it might give her an answer. I was a jerk, she said. I didn't move. I said things I didn't mean. I exhaled. You meant them. You just didn't think they'd cost anything. She nodded. Yeah, that. Silence stretched between us. The air was thick with cicadas. I'm sorry, she said. Not a performance. Not a plea. Just soft. Honest. I didn't rush to forgive her. I let the words settle. Then nodded. Thank you. She stayed there a while longer. Didn't ask for money. Didn't shift blame. Just sat. Quiet. Still. The next day, Connor followed. He didn't knock. Just hovered near the shed while I changed a filter on the mower. I was rude, he said. I didn't turn around. I didn't mean it personally. I closed the cap on the oil. It was personal. He sighed. Okay, then I'm sorry. I tightened the bolts. Thanks for saying that. He stood there, awkward in his own skin, then handed me a wrench. The one I needed next. I took it, and for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't dared name. The start of repair. Not love. Not redemption. But recognition. That night, I sat at the table while Sarah made dinner. Taylor chopped vegetables without being asked. Connor set the table. They didn't do it perfectly. The knives were on the wrong side. The carrots were uneven. But they did it. Because they wanted to. Over dinner, Taylor asked me about work. Connor asked if I wanted help with the deck this weekend. I didn't answer right away. Just took a bite. Swallowed. Then nodded. Sure. The next morning, I found a note on the counter. In Taylor's handwriting. Thanks for everything you've done. Sorry it took me this long to say it. That note sat in my wallet for 3 months. Not because I needed the validation, but because I needed to remember. Sometimes consequences are the only language teenagers understand. I didn't start paying for everything again. I didn't rush back in with open hands and an open checkbook. But I started to soften. Not because they earned it, but because they finally saw it. Saw me. The following week, Connor came into the garage, dragging a busted bike tire. Can we fix this? I nodded. We can. He sat on the floor beside me, handed me tools, watched closely. After an hour, we had it patched. He grinned. You're good at this. Had to be, I said. He looked up. Why? I wiped my hands on a rag. Because no one else was going to do it. He didn't have a response. Just nodded. Quiet. Heavy. Later that week, I caught Sarah staring at me across the room. Not with pity. Not with fear. Just depth. Something unspoken. You did the right thing, she said. Did I? They're changing. Not because I raised my voice. Because I lowered my wallet. She nodded. Sometimes that's what it takes. I looked at her for a long time. And you? I asked. What about me? Are you changing too? She didn't answer right away. Then walked over. Put her hand on mine. I'm seeing things I should have seen years ago. I didn't smile. But I didn't pull away either. We stood like that for a long time. Silent. Still. That weekend, Taylor didn't go out. She stayed home. Watched a movie with Sarah. Laughed. Not performative. Not forced. Just real. Connor spent 3 hours in the garage with me. We didn't talk much. Just worked. Side by side. No declarations. No speeches. Just time. And for the first time since I married into that house, I felt like maybe they were starting to understand that being a father isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about sacrifice made without applause. But even more than that, it's about what happens when that sacrifice is taken for granted. The bills had come due. And for once, I wasn't the one paying them. That Christmas, I didn't go overboard. No tree stuffed with wrapping paper. No stack of receipts pinned under guilt. I bought each of them one gift. Just one. Taylor got a battery pack for her phone, industrial grade, something she could carry in her oversized purse and brag about to her friends. Connor got gloves. The good kind. Insulated. Weatherproof. Meant to last. I wrapped them myself. Plain brown paper. No bows. No frills. They opened them slow, cautious like the act itself might trigger something. Then looked up at me, eyes wide. Not because of the gifts, those weren't impressive, but because for once they didn't expect them. "Thank you," Taylor said. Connor echoed it a second later. I nodded. Sarah watched from across the room. Her coffee steamed in her hands, but her face was unreadable, like she couldn't decide if this was victory or surrender. Later that night, while the kids were upstairs watching some show, something about high school vampires and low-stakes betrayal, Sarah came into the kitchen. She stood behind me for a minute before speaking. "They're trying." I didn't turn around, just rinsed the last plate and placed it in the rack. "They should have tried sooner." "I know." She pulled out a chair, sat down like her bones were heavier than they used to be, like the cost of everything had finally hit her ledger. "I let it happen," she said. "I let them walk over you." I dried my hands. "Yeah," I said. "You did." She flinched. Not hard. Just enough to show she wasn't numb anymore. "I thought I was protecting them. I thought if I pushed too hard, they'd resent me. I didn't realize." "You didn't realize I'd be the one paying for it." She nodded. "I thought love would be enough," she whispered. "That's the problem," I said. "It was never love. It was labor." The words landed like metal. Solid. Sharp. True. I didn't say them to hurt her. I said them because they'd lived inside me too long. She didn't cry. Sarah was never much for tears. But she looked down at her hands like they were covered in something she couldn't scrub off. "I don't know how to fix this," she said. "You can't." I pulled out a chair and sat across from her. The space between us felt like a chasm, years wide, built from silence, sealed with obligation. "You can't fix it," I repeated. "You can only stop pretending it didn't happen." She stared at me. "I'm still here," I said. "But I'm not who I was." And I meant it. I wasn't the stepfather who would overextend anymore. I wasn't the man who confused sacrifice for virtue. I was just present. Still, a little harder around the edges. A little colder in the joints. After that, things didn't return to normal. They just adjusted. Taylor asked before assuming. Connor offered before expecting. Sarah watched her words more carefully. But the damage wasn't undone. It was just recognized. Recognition isn't redemption. It doesn't heal. It just names the wound. Still, that naming mattered. In January, Taylor got accepted into a community college. She showed me the letter first. "Not Sarah. Me. I'm thinking of working full-time and doing classes part-time," she said. I nodded. "That's smart." She hesitated. "If I pay for it myself, would you help with books?" I looked her in the eyes. "If you keep showing up like this?" "Yeah." Her shoulders relaxed. Not a celebration, just a release, like she'd been holding her breath since October. Connor started tagging along when I ran errands. He didn't say much, just sat in the truck, asked questions about oil changes, about tools, about things his real father never taught him. One time we were coming back from Home Depot. He turned to me at a red light and said, "You ever think about leaving?" I didn't answer right away. Then, "Yeah, I did." He nodded. Quiet. "I wouldn't have blamed you," he said. I pulled into the driveway. Parked. "That's why I didn't," I said. "Because someone had to stay." He didn't respond. But when we got out, he grabbed a bag without being asked. It wasn't perfect. They still had moments, the entitled tone creeping back, the occasional comment that felt like a regression. But I stopped correcting them. Let life handle that now. They'd earned the weight of their own choices. So had Sarah. She stepped back, too. Let me lead where I needed to. Didn't filter my voice through hers anymore. Let me be seen, heard, without running interference. I noticed little things. The thermostat didn't get cranked up without a question. Dinner dishes weren't left out anymore. Taylor started paying for her own shampoo. Connor walked the dog without being asked. They weren't chores. They were acknowledgments. Of presence. Of debt. Of respect. And that respect, that quiet, earned, bruised respect, meant more to me than any dad ever would have. Because now it wasn't obligatory. It wasn't a title given to appease a woman or decorate a photo. It was hard-won, scar-won. One evening, Taylor and I were both in the garage. She was digging for a paintbrush. I was reorganizing the pegboard. She paused. You think we'll ever be close? I kept working. Close like what? Like family. I stared at the pliers in my hand. The ones I'd used to fix her bicycle when she was 11. The ones she never said thank you for. I placed them back on the hook. We're something, I said. I'm not sure what to call it, but we built it with truth. That's better than closeness. She nodded slowly. I'd like to earn more of it. Then keep showing up. That was it. No hug. No emotional music. Just mutual understanding built from ruin. In February, Connor got suspended. 2 days. Vaping in the locker room. Sarah was furious. Ready to lecture, to punish, to ground him into dust. I stopped her. I'll handle it. He sat across from me in the garage. Slouched. Defensive. I said only one thing. You've seen what happens when someone disappoints the man who shows up. He stared at the floor. I'm sorry, he mumbled. Don't tell me, I said. Change it. He did. Grades climbed. Attitude settled. No more locker room stunts. Not because I demanded perfection. Because he finally understood where the limits lived and what they cost. By spring, things had stabilized. Calm even. Not joyful. Not warm. But functional. And that was enough. Sometimes Sarah would catch me watching them, her kids, our house, the quiet routine that used to suffocate me. Now stripped of delusion. She'd touch my arm. You still love us? She'd ask. And I'd say, I love who you're trying to be. That was honest. That was enough. Love without respect is a cage. But respect, even if it's late, is a kind of freedom. It let me breathe again. It let me stay without disappearing. And now I don't expect affection. I don't ask for gratitude. I just expect truth, behavior, presence. Not because I'm owed it, but because I've earned it. So here's the question. After years of giving without being seen, after dinners cooked, bills paid, wounds swallowed, was I wrong to finally step back? To let them feel the chill of absence before they understood the cost of warmth? Would you have stayed? Would you have bent further? Or would you, like me, have finally said, no more, and waited to see who noticed the silence? Because here's what I learned. Love doesn't matter if it's built on blindness. Respect is the only inheritance I'm willing to leave behind. So I ask you, was I wrong? Or were they simply late? Too late to say thank you. Too late to say stay. Too late to make me believe it mattered. And now they have to earn it. One day at a time. One act at a time. Without applause. Just like I did.